Podcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Good morning. Good morning to you. And yes, believe it or not, it is Saturday once again, and you have the opportunity to hear the sound of my voice. As a matter of fact, if you can hear my voice, you know this is the host of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley, none other than Marc Medley. And I do have a guest. She's waiting in the wings, so I'm not going to delay any further, as I'm going to go ahead with our normal ritual and routine, which is to share the weather with you. Then I'm going to read from 2 books, since it is the Reading Circle, to kick off the show, introduce my guests, share some information with you, and then our interview will commence. And we're going to do that in that order. So I tell you what, we're talking about the weather. I tell you what's going on right here in the Wayne, New Jersey area. It's 33.4 degrees. Looks like we're going to work our way up to a high today of 51 and drop back down to a low of 34 tonight. It's going to be sunny, though, and clear tonight. Sunday, a mainly sunny sky. Again tomorrow, 59 as a high, 34 as a low. Clear skies on tomorrow night. Then on Monday, 60 as a high, 44 as a low. Considerable cloudiness on Monday night. Tuesday, cloudy with showers, high of 53, low of 41 on Tuesday night. Again, a few clouds. And then Wednesday, the sun pops back out, sun and clouds mixed. 59 as a high, 40 as a low. Well, that's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. Good morning again to you. As you know, I read from 2 books to kick the show off, just to start things off in a positive vein. And that is from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. And that is by Joyce Meyer. The little things are important too. Keep on asking and it will be given you. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking reverently and the door will be open to you. Matthew 7:7. It is difficult for our finite minds to grasp and believe that God wants to be involved in even the smallest details of our lives. But don't ever hesitate to take what you think are small things to God. After all, everything is small to God. I remember a woman who came to me for prayer and wanted to know if it would be all right if she asked God for 2 things. If not, she assured me that she would only ask for 1. It makes me sad when I hear people say things like that. We can be thankful because God is generous and He wants to give even more than we know how to ask for. You have not because you ask not. See James 4:2. So go ahead and ask boldly because it is God's will that you do so. The prayer of thanks. Father, I am thankful that there is no prayer request too big for you, and there is no prayer request too small for you. Today I choose to bring every prayer need and declaration of thanksgiving to you, no matter how big or how small. I can tell you, I can witness to that because I've asked for some tiny things that I thought was tiny, and the prayer was actually answered, actually rather quickly, and it was something in my mind really just didn't matter, but obviously it did to God. But I can testify to that one. But in any event, out of the book Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant for November the 12th. Iyanla says, the greatest service I can offer is being a star with a good and supportive cast. Lights, cameras, actions. Your life is on center stage and you are the star. You have been practicing for the opening of your show all of your life. You set the stage with what you believe. You chose the cast for every role with what you chose to think about yourself. You wrote the script with every word you have ever spoken and every action you have ever taken. The question is, what part will you play in your own show? Will you be a victim or a victor, a lover or a loser? Will you be a hero, a villain? It is your show, which means you get to choose what role you will play in your life. Many people believe that the way their lives play out has more to do with their characters in their lives than how they direct themselves. Others believe it is the producer who hires people to do them harm and fires people who are good to them. It is the same producer who some believe has written the script for their lives, casting them in a role for which they are unprepared. Few of us understand that what we believe about who we are determines the role we play in life. You can act helpless or be powerful. You can act victimized or be vigilant. You can act up each time you do not get your way, or you can act out your greatest dreams. You can act like a star and live like a star, or you can be an underpaid understudy. Whatever the scene or circumstance, you will always act out the role you have been practicing in your mind. You will live the script you believe you are worthy to live. You will have an entire cast of characters who either support you or turn on you based on what you believe. Until today, you may have been waiting for a producer to discover you and cast you in a life role that would make you a star. Just for today, decide whether the script you are acting in now serves you or is doing you a disservice. Remember that you are directing the entire show. Today, I'm devoted to being a skilled director and producing a better life experience. I could not think of a better segue into our introduction of our guest this morning. And that is none other than Renee Smith, nationally recognized self-esteem and branding expert and coach, speaker, and author. Renee Smith can point to thousands of people who have experienced the positive results of her advice. But perhaps her strongest endorsement is her own life. Renee's confident, courageous, unstoppable mindset has been shaped by failure, rejection, and criticism. Her life-changing There Is More Inside programs have been developed based on her accomplishments and the deliberate successes of her clients. Teased and bullied until age 12, and only 2 years after reading her first book on self-development, she was elected queen of her middle school and won the superlatives of friendliest and best personality. A C student in high school, she attended Delaware State University and graduated cum laude in only 3 years. After gaining valuable corporate experience, Renee pursued her childhood dream of becoming a model and a television talk show host. Believing that no is never the final answer, despite being told that she wasn't, quote, model material, unquote, because her nose was too big, her complexion too dark, and she was too short. She packaged, positioned, and launched her own modeling career. All right now, after years of being in the industry, she was encouraged to consider plastic surgery to increase her marketability, but refused. She worked Iman, Susan Lucci, and the late Joan Rivers, and others. The career lasted for more than a decade. Using the branding principles she teaches today on how to package, position, and promote oneself in the marketplace, Renee secured a talk show host and spokesperson position with United Paramount Network, that's UPN, Philadelphia, without taking a single class in broadcast journalism. All right. As a host and producer, she held a strong stance on addressing issues such as women in diversity, inequality in education and healthcare, neighborhood revitalization, violence and the impact of negative images, and lyrics on youth. After leaving the entertainment industry, she used her knowledge of value, proposition, and savvy negotiation skills to gain a promotion from admissions counselor to director of public relations at an institution of higher learning in only 8 months, placing her in the president's cabinet. After a year being bullied, she was fired from the job, and 4 months later, her fiancé walked out of her life. Diagnosed as being depressed, S. Renee threw the doctor-prescribed antidepressants in the trash, made up her mind that her life was going to change, and she began her journey back to herself. It was in that place that There Is More Inside was born. A thought-provoking and insightful speaker, S. Renee delivers passionate, power-packed informational presentations that teach others how to build the confidence and create a likable, marketable, and credible personal brand. When S. Renee is not writing, coaching, or speaking, she is volunteering. In 2015, she became the first honorary command chief at the Department of Defense, largest aerial port, Dover Air Force Base. She was one of 150 people in the nation invited by the Secretary of the United States Air Force to attend the 62nd National Security Forum at Air War College, which was held at Maxwell Air Force Base, Montgomery, Alabama. She is the chair of the William J. and Reverend Shirley M. Smith Senior Scholarship Fund and former chair of the City of Dover Human Relations Commission. She also serves on the United Way of Delaware Women in the Leadership Council, the Commission on Early Education and the Economy, and on Kent County's advisory board of Delaware's largest philanthropic organization, Delaware Community Foundation. Among many recognition for the impact she has made on others' lives, July 17, 2010 was declared S. Renee Smith Day in the city of Buffalo, New York. On May 9, 2013, she received a commendation from Delaware House of Representatives as a personal growth expert, and on April 16, 2015, Wilmington City Council organized a citywide book signing and acknowledged her for her work for the World Best-Selling Brand Series for Dummies in 2006. She received the Distinguished Alumni Award from the National Association for Equal Opportunity. S. Renee is a graduate of Leadership Delaware. She earned certificates of completions from the University of Delaware, Conflict Resolution Program, and Basic Mediation Training, and the sales from Xerox International Center for Management and Training Development. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome S. Renee Smith to the Reading Circle microphones. S. Renee, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be here. As you know, as I was listening to you talk and share the information from the two books, Iyanla's book, I think you said.
Correct.
And you were talking about thought process and how really we become our thoughts. And I was just like, yes, yes, yes.
I
absolutely love what you were sharing this morning. So thank you for waking us up and reminding us first thing in the morning that our thoughts have to be in alignment with our desires, because that's how we manifest them. So thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
Oh, you are more than welcome. We kick the show off each Saturday morning reading from Iyanla's book. Has been, I think, for the most time since I've been doing that, the book. The second book I switch off every now and again, because I know it started with a book called What Can Happen When We Pray, and then Iyanla's book. And then I switched off to The Power of Being Thankful and kept Iyanla's book. And I always read from the two, and from everything for the rest of the morning just kind of flows after reading from those two books. And more often than not, whatever the passage is for that morning lines up with who my guest is. It's almost, on the one hand, I'm not surprised because I know how things work, but on the other hand, it's almost kind of freakish. But they usually line up with whatever the topic is for the morning.
Yeah. And I get that. That all things are in order.
That's right.
So there are no accidents.
Exactly.
In alignment. So, but you, my friend, as you were talking this morning, obviously you're part of creating that. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Many thanks. Much thanks. Always grateful and thankful. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share some information with the listening audience. As a matter of fact, whenever now, do they call you Renee or do they go by the S as well? It's like I do.
Renee. Yes. I get that question all the time. S. Renee.
So they call you S. Renee.
S. Renee. It's almost like one word. S. Renee.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Because I know, like, I do the middle initial, I do it the other way. Marc A. Medley. I mean, I never sign anything without the A in the middle. But every time I see the initial up front, I never know if people want us to use the initial or just call them by the name. So, okay, so I can address you as S. Renee then.
S. Renee it is.
That will work. All right. So, as S. Renee and I were talking prior to getting on the call, the conversation got so good before I knew it, 6 o'clock was here. So I had took a couple of minutes to do exactly what I'm getting ready to ask you all to do while I'm sharing this information with you, and that is get on all your social media sites. You know the drill, routine listeners. Those of you who listen each Saturday morning, you know the drill. This is the time to get on all your social media sites and your mobile device and text somebody. Let someone know that S. Renee Smith is on the line with me, and you do not want to miss this interview this morning. It is going to be another good one. So wake somebody up, even if you have to call them the old-fashioned way. If you have old-fashioned landline, wake them up. Tell them to tune in to gobrave.org, and in the northern New Jersey area on FM radio WP 88.7 FM.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Chris, you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
There's your comic book collection, the race car bed.
I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I'm taking control over my financial life, and that feels pretty grown up to me.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Are those footy pajamas?
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Listen to Brave New Radio on your smartphone with TuneIn Radio.
Yes, indeed. You're listening to The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. We're with you live each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, or roughly thereabouts. Many of you know that in most cases, the interviews wind up running more than an hour. They actually wind up running more closer to an hour and a half. But that's okay, because then the remainder of the time slot between then and 9 o'clock, I put on the good news and song, which is the gospel music. Thankfully, I have all three of the hours, and station management has kind of given me the autonomy to use the 3 hours any way I wish. So if the interview lasts more than an hour, you all are used to that. Because, S. Renee, this is what happened. Most of my guests will call in and say, what in the world are we going to talk about for an hour? And before you know it, an hour, hour and a half has passed real quickly. So I tell you what,
get it.
I don't have a set list of questions. My questions usually are generated from the responses. So, but I do have some like general questions, like first, like where did it all begin? And I noticed in your bio, I read a lot of times people are like, oh, I can't believe you read the whole thing. So like, no, I like to read the whole thing because I want it to be an inspiration and an encouragement for someone in the audience listening. And what the hope is that with reading the entire bio, that people will get a full picture, and then we'll put it in their mind, well, you know what, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. It can happen for S. Renee, it can happen for me. And I noticed in your bio, like the roller coaster. Let's talk about where did you go all the way back to middle school when you're talking about being bullied and then winning the friendliest and best personality. Let's talk about that whole experience and where did it start, because it's obviously led you somewhere.
Yeah, Mark, it's really interesting. We were talking earlier about the fact that you're an elementary school principal, and all the children's lives who you have the opportunity to touch, and the foundation in which you are able to impart to assist them on their journey. And oftentimes when we think about our lives, we think about where we are and where we want to go. We have a tendency to allow the pain of the past to dictate what we're thinking and where we think we can go, right?
Correct.
What I did at a pretty young age was to look at the pain that I was in and allow it to push me forward. But because life is a journey of always moving forward, but yet experiencing what our soul needs for us to move to the next level of evolution, I had the tendency to create those things over until I really got it, right? So for me, it started at when I was teased and bullied and I felt shut down and I didn't have a voice at a very young age. Now, interesting enough, I come from a family, a middle-class family, had the opportunity to do many things. I was raised in the church, so in the church that I went to, which was a safe haven for me. I played the piano. I, went to Sunday school. So I had all these positive experiences over here. But when I went to school, because I lived in an all-white neighborhood, I couldn't figure out where I fit because I was raised in the 70s, right? So during that time, white people, you didn't quite fit there. And black people, if you didn't come from their neighborhood, you didn't have that relationship.
Correct.
So I was right in the middle. And so I ended up being teased and bullied because I was different. Like everybody's different.
Right.
I didn't have those friendships, right? So as a result, being teased and bullied, I figured out my parents, we actually moved from one neighborhood to another. And I had made up in my mind at 12 years old that I was not going to go through what I went through at the old school. And so I went to the new school, and the bully and her entourage, they came, and I remember this, I was in gym class, and they would come and hit me in the head and run, hit me in the head and run, hit me in the head and run. And I looked for the weakest link. And when she came and she hit me in the head and took off running, I got up and took off running behind her. And before you know it, I was in a fight. And everybody was wondering, why is the good girl fighting? Well, the good girl was tired of being bullied and decided to take up for herself.
Absolutely.
After that day, I didn't have any other problems being bullied. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm an advocate of violence or that is the way to go about doing it, because today we're dealing with a different type of bully.
Yes, indeed.
A different type of mentality. We're dealing in a different type of society. And so I believe that there needs to be a higher level of consciousness, as you have as a principal of a school, of what's going on and how it impacts children and what we need to do, which I absolutely love some of the things we talked about that you're doing at your school, to really change the mindset of students so that they can understand their own power and stand in it. That was a long answer, but that's what happened.
No, that's okay, because see, in radio, as you know, long answers are okay because what you don't want is dead time and quiet time. So long answers are good. And you touched on a few things there that I was listening to in terms of what was going on there. And you're right in terms of, okay, you said you grew up during the 70s. So I can relate because I grew up during that same time. And I can totally get what you're talking about in terms of like not fitting in, which can be at that age, it gets really kind of crazy. It really does. So I noticed here you were saying you read a self-development book. Do you remember what book that was?
I do, absolutely. It was called See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar.
Ah, Zig. Okay. All right. There you go. See You at the Top. And you started reading. You read that at 12.
Starting at 12, yeah. Yeah. I was always on an exploratory journey. I think for our soul, if we listen to it, no matter what age,
right,
it kind of is guiding us. Right?
Correct.
If we look back over our lives, or those that are listening, we'll realize that even back then in elementary school, we can remember those feelings that we had. We can remember, wanting to do something but being led to do something else, where we felt called to act a different way than what we were, or we acted in the way that we were called to act. And I just happened to be that child that always asked questions, was pretty much in tune with myself, and was always seeking the answers to the questions that I was asking myself. I really had a yearning. And this is why I believe, Mark, that we have these early signs of what we were meant to do in life. Because we see it. There's like a pattern.
Right.
In our behaviors. There's a pattern in our thinking. Now, whether we choose to accept it or shut it down is up to us. But if we kind of look back, we'll say, man, I remember feeling that way when I was really young, or I remember thinking about that when I was really young, and I remember wanting to do that when I was really young. And so that's kind of like the journey I'm on now, just this self-awareness for myself and helping other people to get there. And that's how, interesting enough, that's how I became popular, because I began to ask other people questions about their lives and really try to pull them to where I am. Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting, and the reason I asked you the question is because this whole show, of course, that's why it's called The Reading Circle, is about reading. And where it dovetails and connects to what I do during the week is this whole thing of getting kids to read more, not just the kids, the adults as well. So for me, Saturday morning is kind of like what you just said. It's like a classroom for me. Not only is it a classroom where I have an opportunity to teach, but as you just said, I get a chance to question people about their lives or what have you, just like we're doing now. And so the fact that you were reading a book, and then you said Zig Ziglar at 12, is like, well, because I see you here on your website. That's there's Chicken Soup for the Soul. What I'm trying to think of his name.
Oh, Chip Canfield, yeah.
Yes, and as soon as I saw that, I said, and we were talking just now about middle school and everything, I give out his books to the teenagers. There's a Chicken Soup for the Soul for teenagers. And I had a stack of those in my office, and every time the kid would come to my office, they'd leave with that book.
Oh, wow.
And they would actually come back because they like, Mr. Medley, I like that Chicken Soup for the Soul book for teenagers. I'm like, good. You like what the kids were saying? Like, yeah, I can connect to some of the stories, so forth and so on. And so the fact that I saw you reading a Zig Ziglar like at 12, that intrigued me because I'm constantly pushing reading in my building.
Yeah. And it's a way of learning, of experiencing. It's a way of escape, right?
Correct.
So, yes, reading is, as they say, reading is fundamental. And I unfortunately, it is really good to hear that you are pushing it and that you're encouraging it, and you're even providing the resource for young people to engage in the reading experience. We live in a time where our young people, are used to texting. They're used to engaging in a way that doesn't go deep.
Right.
Everything is high level, and so, we do we have the Twitter account, and
right.
It has to be a certain amount of words. And so it is really good to hear that you are really encouraging that, because I believe that if you want to expand your thinking, and, you can't necessarily go to Italy or Russia or France, or you can't go to California or, a different state. Through reading, you can go there.
Absolutely.
Through reading, you can experience the ride on the train, or the landing of a plane. So you can still experience those things, even if you can't, quote, afford to experience them. And no, it's not the same, but certainly when you're reading those books that really take you there, you're
right.
there in your own mind. Because what did you say at the beginning? It's the mind that takes us there.
Correct. And we were talking this before we went on the air about trying to get the children exposed. And you're so right in terms of sometimes, as much as we would like to expose them by physically taking them to the place, sometimes due to economics or what have you just can't do that. But the book will indeed take you there once you start using your imagination. And you just said something that clicked for me, that Monday when I go back, because I have a staff meeting Monday, that I'm going to use what you were just saying in terms of the kids stay at a high level. They don't go deep. And that whole media, the social media thing is exactly that. You're right. I never looked at it in that way. Because one of the big pushes we have is trying to get the kids to critically think. And you just, for me, gave me something to think about in terms of why we're struggling with critical thinking, because most of the stuff that we do now doesn't require critical thinking. That high level you were just talking about doesn't really require critical thinking.
Absolutely, which in turn impacts the decision-making skills. Even though they have the capacity to step up into a new level, we're not taking them there as adults. Clearly you are in terms of the reading and in terms of some of the things you're doing in character building. But how do we really get them to understand that this is the experience that we are trying to create for them, and why?
Right.
And why it's so crucial and critical to their growth and to their experience as adults. On the other side of this teen experience is an adult life that includes working, and in the workplace there's such a need for people to be able to make those critical decisions, because that's what you get paid for in most cases. Can you make a decision that impacts this organization in a positive way?
That's correct.
There's nothing, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're talking to somebody on the other side of the phone or on the other side of the counter, and you just want your issue resolved. That's it. And that's it. I just want the issue resolved. And you're going back and forth with the person who's saying, but I can't make the decision. I have to talk to my manager. Our policy says this. But it's logical.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yes, I have been in that situation. As a matter of fact, one just popped into my mind back in the summertime. I was having a phone call with a customer service rep, and we just kept going in this stupid loop. And exactly what you just said, like, sir, had this, just long and short of the situation was I was supposed to get a discount on a payment had I paid by a certain date. Now, I had paid it by a certain date, but for some reason their system didn't receive it. So whenever they called back, I never did receive their call. And so now he's going to try to tell me I was going to have to pay the full amount. I said, I'm not paying the full amount because I had paid you the discounted amount on the day that you said, and I spoke to someone, and he was trying to tell me, well, because you didn't pick up the phone when they call you back, that you got, like, no. And we just kept going, and he just kept on, sir, you do what you need to do on your end, but I'm not paying an additional amount, period. But it was like a decision that was, he could see in his system that it was paid on the date that it was, or at least the attempt was made on the date that it was due. He could see that. Like, okay, if you can see that, then why wouldn't you be able to just note that and say, yes, he paid, there was a technological error, whatever. So, long story short, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had it on, that's just one example. But you're right. And that's where, and it's, you just said something again that was critical and that I tell people all the time as well, is people tend to do or understand once you give them the why. It's one thing to say, all right, I need you to do this. But then once you go further and say, this is how this is going to help you. This is why you need to do this. And that's, we go down that road all the time in terms of trying to, like I told you earlier, connect the dots to the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. That's exactly where we go. Speaking of that, because I'm working my way through your bio, and then we're going to work our way all the way up to the writing of the various books. One of the things here, and I noticed you put it in quote unquote, as I read through it, and that was this whole notion of being told that you were not model material. And now that strikes a chord with me because, again, growing up in the 70s or the 60s or whatever, a lot of African Americans were told they were not college material. And and so I always tell folks, as the principal of the school, if I ever come across a teacher or a guidance counselor that has told a child he or she is not college material, I'm going to do everything I can to get that license revoked. So when I saw that model material, quote unquote, it struck a chord with me. Talk a little bit about that. What was going on there being told that you're not model material?
Yeah, so we live in a society, as you know, Mark, that really categorizes people. So if you look this way and you act this way and you talk this way, then here's a path for you. And everybody who doesn't fit that model, well, the door is closed to you.
Right.
And during the early 90s, when I launched my modeling career, we were still in this mindset that if you didn't look a particular way, then you didn't fit the model. So I'm going to give you an example. I competed in pageants as well. And as a result of being an African-American woman, and I'm going to say this respectfully, but we have a particular body type.
Correct.
Right? Not everybody doesn't have the same body type, but we are built differently.
Correct.
Than other people. That's a generalization, but I want to set that up. It's proven that different races, for whatever the reason, based on the region that we live in, based on the types of food that we eat, it creates a particular type of body type, if you will. And the way we work out, et cetera. So long story short, I was competing in pageants, and I was told that my butt was too big. Now, keep in mind, I was 100. When I first started competing, I was 100 and about 14 pounds.
Wow.
Right? I literally, in order to meet the model that they were looking for, the model type, I got down to maybe like 102 pounds, 103 pounds. I look like a skeleton because that's not for my body type.
Right. That's correct.
And as I, from the pageants to the modeling, trying to fit the model type. And what I decided is that there is no type. In that I decided that I was going to package position and promote myself. I'm 5'3". That's a petite model. I had, slightly hips. That is the average person.
Right.
So I decided to kind of package and position myself and promote myself as I'm average. I'm like the person that you're trying to sell your product to. And so as a result, your people are going to look at me, and they're going to feel like they can connect with me, and then they're going to buy your product. And that came, of course, because I was a marketing major.
Right.
So I was able to walk through that and create the the pitch to the industry, and they bought into it. So, yes, when I went to, and later, interesting enough, and then later I was signed with one of the top modeling agencies, and et cetera. But I literally went out and pitched myself with that in mind and landed on QVC, did runway modeling, et cetera. But here it is, and this is what people need to get. And it goes back to what you were reading about this morning. It's about your mindset. It's about how you think. It's about how you see yourself. It's about what you tell yourself that you're going to tell others. Because when you show up in your power, when you show up in your confidence, when you show up in your spirit, in who you are, and you literally convince people, not because you have to, really talk long, convince them, but you convince them because of the presence, because of the confidence, because of the energy. They're just like, wow, I can't deny this. Are you kidding me?
But it's true. And I sit here, like I told you earlier, it's amazing how the readings line up with the conversation in terms of my guest. The second thing that's amazing also is it's always interesting to me how conversations I've had leading up to the show or the morning of the guest is very similar. The whole conversation you were just having about body types and depending on which ethnic group you're in. I just had this conversation yesterday with my wife. Yesterday morning, we were riding in the car, we were talking about something else, but we were just having this same conversation. And also just now you were talking about the whole notion that Iyanla was talking about with the mind. And again, I go back to my kids. I have no problem pulling in my office and having a heart-to-heart conversation with it. So a lot of times I will tell the kids, you were asking me earlier, how do we do the character development? A lot of times I would start off with, you got to love you. Like I'll like the little girls, I'll tell them right off the bat, before you start worrying about the loving of a boy, this and the other, love yourself first. So I always tease them. I always tell them, look, let me tell you something. Every morning, Mr. Medley gets up and looks in the mirror and says, I love me some me. And I said, I don't mean that in a cocky way. I don't mean that in an arrogant way or I'm a better than you way. But I'm constantly reaffirming that I love me. And therefore, I'm not going to do any harm to myself. Because a lot of times these conversations will come up when I'm talking to a child who's contemplating suicide or who has been bullied or who doesn't fit in, all of those things that you were just describing. And we'll get into that whole notion of you got to love yourself. So I had this one young lady, she had some serious anger management issues. And we started talking about, writing in a journal and so forth and so on and loving yourself. So one day she comes into my office. I said, did you start writing your journal? She said, yeah, I actually started writing a little novel, a little short story. And I said, oh, really? What is it about? And so now this is how I know she listened to what I said. She said, yeah, I called it Loving Myself.
Oh, wow.
And right. And I was blown away. I really was. I was like, wow, she really listened to what I said. So she said, yeah, it's called Loving Myself. I'm saying all that to say you're absolutely 100% correct in terms of the mind, in terms of connecting, of the whole soul thing. Because as I'm sitting here listening to you as you're talking, so many things are going through my mind, either in conversations I had, either the reading this morning. You said, believe it or not, the commonalities, because I told you when we first started, I have 2 daughters that graduated from Del State. That was one. I saw something in your bio about the Air Force. I did 9 years in the Air National Guard. I know Dover Air Force Base very well. In terms of playing the piano, I played the piano for my church as well. So I'm sitting here listening to you like, wow. And this is our first time talking.
Absolutely.
And yet the commonalities and the similarities, and so that's when you get back into the whole soul connection thing of it's something bigger than us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you were talking about how you actually are using words to connect people to a bigger cause, right? To rally them around something. The word love, for instance.
Correct.
Rallying them around love, rallying people around something greater than themselves. I mean, that's me. It's,
right.
Like, to your point, and it's funny too how when you think about this man, there's several things that is going on here for me. I don't know. So we were talking about the social media piece and how it's all really high level. right? And how this generation, we have to really engage them in different ways in order to help them to build the social skills of, so that they can better connect with themselves and one another, and not be engulfed into, looking at people's Facebook pages and, really living vicariously through them and imagining themselves being something that they're not and trying to create this image, but being real and authentic. But yet, we can flip that, and social media is as powerful and useful and such a great resource because that's how we became connected.
Correct. And you're right. I mean, when social media first came, I think one of the first ones was MySpace, and I knew that was for kids. That's for kids. But then Facebook and all that came out right behind it, and I still had the mindset of that's just for kids. And then finally, the light went on in terms of promoting for the show. And over the last 3 or 4 years, or whenever I started my Facebook page, and then all the rest of them, LinkedIn and all the rest of them, 99% of my guests have come through that. Just like I met you, the bulk of my guests over the last 3 or 4 years have come through social media. And social media is I always say it's a powerful tool if you use it correctly. Because in terms of, I don't know, it's one of the most interesting phenomenons I've ever seen, because regardless of how famous you are, or how much money you have, people respond on it. I mean, I remember as a kid, like you saying, growing up in the 70s, I remember writing letters to my favorite football team, my favorite actor, or my favorite baseball team, whatever, not getting any response. But now if you send a tweet or something on LinkedIn, they respond back. And I mean, I've met athletes and actors and actresses and politicians and all, on Twitter. And then when you saw the craziness during this last presidential campaign with Donald and Twitter and Hillary and all that, if you looked at the debates, let me see, I think it was only 3. All 3 of those debates were sponsored by one or more of the social media companies. It was either Facebook or Google or I'm trying to think which one of the other ones. Twitter. One of them. All of the debates somewhere in there, their sponsorship was by one of the social media giants. That's how big that has permeated society.
Yeah. So, to your point, teaching our young people how to use it, because maybe not at the elementary level, but in the middle school, I know that Mrs. Trump is talking about a part of her platform when she gets to the White House is going to be on social media boards.
Right.
So it's a big issue that is out there, and how it impacts. And think about it. Outside of our babies, adults, think about how social media impacts our self-esteem. Think about how we are looking at other people and comparing ourselves. Think about how we try to create, how we work so hard to create an image in the minds of people of who we are, versus really being our authentic selves. And what does that, and think about this whole concept of selfies, right? I mean, I've done them. You may have done them.
Right. Oh, yes.
The whole concept of going live, on Facebook. I've done that. I do it mainly I use it as a teaching tool.
Right.
But think about, people are going live. I mean, everybody has a message now, and everybody can be, quote, the star.
This is true. The 15 minutes of fame, that's right.
We have our 15 minutes of fame, and everybody is, clawing their way to the top. Some people have something really great to say. Some people really don't have a whole lot to say.
Right.
So think about how all of this is impacting. I mean, literally, after the election was over, I really wasn't going on Facebook that much, because everything was just so negative.
Right.
And everything is so. And think about how that impacts your psyche and your thinking, because everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you read is impacting what's going on inside of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out, positive in, positive out. See, again, this same conversation I had, a mother comes in, the daughter had, she had talked in school of committing suicide. This is what we call a crisis. And the child, whenever she was giving her explanation, she said she saw a vision in the mirror that was very dark, like a dark black curtain came over the mirror, and the image in the mirror, did the cut across the neck sign. And so, but then as we're talking, where I'm going with the story is the mother says, oh, yeah, she watches all these horror movies all the time. And I've been trying to get her off the horror movies, but she won't stop. I said, see, right there. There it is, right there. And I told the child, I said, you have got to stop watching the horror movies, because what you put in is what comes out. Exactly what you were just saying. Everything we take in goes into our spirit or soul or psyche or whatever term you want to use. It really does. And eventually it does manifest itself outwardly.
Absolutely.
So social media is the same way. And I'm laughing as you're sitting here talking about like our self-esteem. It's interesting in terms of we do build our social media platforms with the intentions of seeing how many likes we can get, how many followers we can get. I know for me on LinkedIn, I'm at about 9,800 or 9,700, and I'm sitting there like, oh wow, 3 more hundred, I'll be at 10,000. What you call it? So it's like 3 more hundred. I mean, you say you really gauge by those kind of metrics. And so I'm like,
isn't it amazing? It's really true, and it is so true. And when people say, oh my God, I have 10,000 or 20,000. And I'm thinking, wow, I have like 1,500, and I'm out here speaking. And but here's what I came to. Here's my realization for me is that when I say that, I said, okay, Renee, what is this converting to? What's on the other side of a life, right?
Right.
Really, what's on the other side of it? What's in it? What's in it? What's in it?
It's true.
In most cases, for many people, there's nothing in it for them. But the fact that somebody just pushed a button, and think about how many times you pushed like and you only read the first 2 sentences.
Right. And it's true. I went on a campaign a few weeks ago because, during the showtime, during the week I'm not on it too much, but Friday nights and Saturday mornings I'm really blitz. And since we're talking about it, I haven't had a chance to do it, but like if I'm playing, when I go into the DJ mode, putting the music on, I really get on there. And I started challenging people. I hope going back to what you were just saying about what's behind that, like I said, I hope for each one of those likes that I receive that you become a listener. And so I've told her, I need you to move from likes to listeners.
Absolutely. So you're doing something, though, productive with it in order to convert it to something.
Right.
And because we have to be, in all things, we have to be deliberate and intentional. And that's one of the things, really about, critical thinking. So, earlier we were talking about conflict. And what I've learned, conflict, and I'll share with you internal conflict and what I talk about in Empower Your Genie, but external conflict first. So external conflict for me is two people who have the same experience, but they view the experience differently. Right? So in Self-Esteem for Dummies, I talk about that. How can you have two people? And at that time, and we have had, where we have a lot of police, civilian interaction, right? So how can you have two people who are in the same space experiencing, from their perspective, right?
Right.
But yet the outcome is so deadly. Like, how are we getting to this point?
Right.
So now put it on an elementary level in terms of our day-to-day actions. Think about husband and wives and siblings, and think about the experience at the grocery store. We're both creating this experience together.
Right.
Why is it that we see it so differently?
No, you're absolutely right. I just finished reading a book called 5 Love Languages. I think it's Gary Chapman. I think that's the author. I know his last name is Chapman. I'm not sure if Gary's the first name or not. But that's what he gets in terms of the communications thing. Like what might be my love language might not be my wife's love language, and that's why we might keep missing each other in terms of how the message comes across. And the same thing kind of applies with what you're talking about for two people to be experiencing the same thing and seeing them in totally different ways. It might be how they filter information, how they receive, how they process, what's hot for them. For one may not be hot for the other. And so, yes, that conflict, it does arise. Matter of fact, if you've just joined us, listening audience, I told you the hour goes quickly. I'm speaking this morning with Renee Smith. She is the author of Self-Esteem for Dummies, Our Heart's Wonder, The Bridge to Your Brand. There is more inside. And we've been working our way. She just started talking a little bit about self-esteem for dummies, but we've been working our way into that, and we're at the 7 o'clock hour. So, Renee, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing we did at 6 o'clock in terms of the weather and all of that, and then we'll continue on with the conversation.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right, we are still at 33.4 degrees. It tells me it feels like 33. We're moving our way, or working our way, shall I say, up to a high of 51, a low of 34. It's going to be sunny, even though it's relatively cool, but it's a fall day. Clear tonight, and then Sunday, sunny skies, 59 as a high, 34 as a low, clearing up on Sunday night, or shall I say remaining clear. Monday, except for a few afternoon clouds, mainly sunny, high near 60. 44 as a low, and then on Tuesday, overcast with rain showers at times, high of 53, low of 41, few clouds on Tuesday night. And Wednesday, the sun makes its way back out. It'll be partly cloudy, high of 59, low of 40. Well, that's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. It is my hope that you've been with us since the show began, because the conversation has been real good. The conversation has been fascinating. It's been confirmation and affirmation and all of the above for me. Hopefully it's been that for you. If you've been listening to Renee speak, she's talking about mindsets. She's talking about, kind of like you get back what you put out there. It's, it's really, and not that life is going to always be easy, because it's not. Because if you listened, earlier when I read her bio, it was like a roller coaster. We went from bullying to in the pageant, and from own modeling company, and we didn't even talk about the piece where the fiance left and being bullied at work and so forth and so on. So it's a roller coaster, but how you manage that roller coaster will determine how well you fare in life. Do you have hope, or do you quit? And because at each point in the roller coaster, you could just say, that's it, I'm out. Or you pick yourself up and you move on to the next thing. Whenever she was told she was not modeling material, she started her own modeling company. Whenever she was told this, she did that. And also in there, it said she would not take no for an answer. And that's kind of like the resiliency or the spirit you kind of have to have, to the point where she's now written books on the subject. She's also a motivational speaker, workshop presenter. And again, the books are Self-Esteem for Dummies, Our Heart's Wonder, Prayers to Heal Your Heart and Calm Your Soul, The Bridge to Your Brand. There is more inside. So, Renee, you're one of the folks that I kind of call like a Renaissance woman. You're one of the people, like every now and again I'll have a Renaissance man or a Renaissance woman on. And when I say that, I mean you're not limited to just one thing.
Yeah. Thank you, because I believe that we are all multi-talented, and I think we all have had a lot of different experiences. So, for an example, I don't know this about you, but I would assume before you became a principal, you were a teacher.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Right. So before you became a teacher, you were a student, right?
Correct.
You did something else, and while you were a student, you probably had some job at a fast food restaurant or something of the sort. You worked somewhere.
Correct.
So you've had all these different positions. And it's really about helping people to understand, as you navigate through life, how do you take all of who you are and what you've experienced and package, position, and promote yourself in the marketplace. And so sometimes we look at experience and say, oh, that's minor and that's insignificant, but you learn a lot of different things. So for an example, for the parents that may be attempting to help their child navigate some pieces in life, they just graduated from college, and they're thinking, I don't have a lot of experience, but if you had a job, you probably learned customer service, right? You learned how to contribute to an organization. You built relationships with your coworkers, right? So you navigated conflict. So there's all these things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis that is really a part of our repertoire.
That's right.
Building it. And so really helping people to understand how you package all that, position it, and then pitch it into the marketplace is really what I've done. I mean, just taking all of who I am, not just pieces, because we have a tendency to say, okay, well, I've had this. We don't think even in terms of our, how we show up physically, how we show up mentally, how we show up spiritually. Spiritually meaning that we don't necessarily have to say spiritually, but spiritually is really grounded in how we treat ourselves and how we treat one another.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, in terms of what you were saying just now, I encapsulate that, and I tell people all the time that there is no such thing as a wasted experience. You were talking in terms of jobs. My first job was a custodian. I was a custodian in the high school that I graduated from, actually. And then from there, I worked in corporate America for AT&T for like 15 years. Left there and went into education. But in the meantime, there, like at the AT&T, I had varied assignments. And then whenever I left there to go into teaching, taught, like you said, but in the meantime, I was also in the Air Force, did the Air National Guard. I was a jet engine mechanic. At one time, I was a telemarketing rep. I mean, there's no experience there, because every last one of those positions, even the custodial position, helps me in the principal position.
Yes.
So every job that I've been in, because back to the similarities again, my undergrad degree is in marketing. My BA, my first degree was in marketing, and then the second one was in communications, and the third one was in education. And every last one of them, everything, it all fits together. So there is no such thing as a wasted experience. Even the what we quote unquote call bad experiences, even they feed in and help us in some way. I mean, if nothing else, you know what you don't want based on the bad experience. Okay, I don't want that, so I'll have to do something different. But even that, it helps. And in terms of what you do, the coaching and the speaking and the self-esteem and everything, it is amazing how many people choose not to grow. In other words, like you said, at 12, you were reading Zig Ziglar. So that tells me right off the bat, you've always kind of been one who looks to grow. But there are people out there who don't want to grow. They don't read. They don't go to any seminars. They don't watch any educational TV. They don't do anything about growth. And then there are others of us who are always looking to grow. Like, no matter how good you're, like, I tell folks all the time, as good as when Tiger Woods was the number one golfer, if he's not now, even Tiger Woods still had a coach. The greatest, the best people still have coaches, and yet you have people that think, well, I don't need nobody. Nobody needs to tell me anything. I know what I know. Talk a little bit about the coaching and helping folks with their self-esteem.
Yeah. So this is what I've learned. Interesting enough, I think people appear as though they don't want to grow because for the person who's looking at them, their resistance to not embracing an opportunity to attend a workshop or their resistance to picking up a book and reading it, their resistance to watching material that would help them grow indicates to the person who knows the value of those things that they don't want to grow. So this is what I believe is that people want to grow, but they're not willing to put in the work to grow. Now, whether that's
good point.
Whether that's because they are unconscious and they really don't understand the value of the workshop, or whether it's because there's a fear within them to attend a workshop. Where am I going to fit? What am I going to say? I'm not a good reader. I have a high school diploma, or, I have a college degree, but I'm not as smart as them, or their perception of the person. So, I'm very deliberate about sharing and being transparent about my failures because it allows people to see that I'm just like them.
Exactly.
Otherwise, if I said, if I focused on, I got a book deal and I work with some of the Jack Canfields of the world and, I work with CEOs that run billion-dollar companies, guess what? It separates us. Success separates us.
Correct.
That's the reason why people's self-esteem is impacted because we believe, or society tells you, that the difference between you and I is success. No, the difference between you and I, you being whoever it is, and another person is the work and the commitment that one person's willing to do over the other.
Correct.
That's it.
So that is.
Go ahead.
I'm just kind of like in your amen corner. That's absolutely correct. in terms of, you got to put the work in. We had a guest speaker the other day, Mike Cobb. Years ago he played for the Chicago Bears. And he came in and talked to the kids, and he asked them a question. He said, how many of you in here want straight A's? All little hands went up. How many of you all want to be on the honor roll? All little hands went up. How many of you all want to be a success in life? All the little hands went up. And he brought out an interesting point, again, going along with what you just said. He said, well, let me tell you something. The raising of your hand to those questions is the easy part. Can you put the work in to get to those goals? And exactly what you just said. Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that in terms of your transparency, because that is the difference maker. Like when I read your bio and you say, okay, I was bullied, I see the fiance walked out, I see, you got laid off or fired or what have you, bullied on the job, and yet in spite of it all, you still, like I said earlier, you still kept plugging along. Okay, if that door closed, I'm going through that one. You didn't give up. And that, I think, really, because a lot of people will look at you, like you said, they'll go to that website and see your picture and everything, see the videos and all that, and say, oh, well, I can't be her. But then when they read and see what you've gone through, that gives like, well, you know what, maybe I can be her. Well, they don't have to be her, but I'm not going to give up hope. Like I can see where Renee went through this and she came out, so I can come out too. That's the beauty of whenever you're transparent.
Yes. Because earlier you said, I read the bio so that you can get a full picture.
Right.
Because no one has a straight journey anywhere. No one. Everyone has to have the trials and tribulations because those are the learning points.
Right.
If the first time I wrote my first book and I set my manuscript and it was perfect, guess what? I wouldn't have learned.
Right.
But the fact that when I sent my manuscript, it was totally torn apart and it was in red ink and I was told I had to rewrite it, and I sat down and cried like a 2-year-old.
That's right.
Well, because I felt like, man, I put all that work in. How can you put all that work into something and it not be successful? It's impossible. That just doesn't seem like it lines up right. But, I didn't create the rules of the universe, right? I didn't create how this thing works. I didn't create my own soul. It was something, it was, for me, it's God. right?
Right. That's
So
right.
He's the one who called me to this planet. He's the one who said, you're going to go to Earth.
Right.
I want you to do this
Right.
work. And he says that I will be with you.
Right.
And, it's not going to be, a perfect journey, but I will tell you, I am with you. If you are in the valley, I am with you. If you're
Correct.
climbing the mountain, I am with you. If you're on the mountaintop, I'm with you. I don't care where you are, I'm with you. And so, and that there is nothing you're going to experience that's going to be a mistake. That
Correct.
everything you experience is for your awareness and awakening and enlightenment and for your evolution, and it is for your next step on the journey. It's almost like the things that you experience that you hate the most is really the light shining.
Right.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, you're going through this journey. So when people are looking for an easy way, and back to, your point about people and some people don't want to grow, it's not that they don't want to grow. They just don't want to go through the pain of growing.
That's true. That's right. That's why they're called growing pains. You're absolutely right.
That's why they're called growing pains. But I get that.
Right.
Because I know for myself, I'll share with you this, and many of your readers, our listeners, will probably be shaking their head at this full transparency. When I received the call to write Self-Esteem for Dummies, I had already written 3 books. I had already been working with, CEOs from multi-billion-dollar companies and sitting at the table with people like Jack Canfield. So all of this success. And when I got the call, literally, I almost didn't take it. And the reason why I was thinking about not taking it, truth be told, now here's what I was telling myself. Well, I don't know if that's going to really add value to me or how it's going to impact my brand.
Wow.
Right? That's what I was telling myself. But deep inside, I was really wondering if I could do it.
Wow. No,
that was. Go ahead.
No, I can totally relate. I can totally relate. I was telling somebody the other day. The funny thing about and I'm quite sure the CEOs and the president at some point, they may not say it, but I'm quite sure, because I know it happens for me. Every now and again, I'll be walking out of my car into the school building, and the thought will come to mind, like, wow, I'm in charge of all this. Like, I'm the one, for this building, I can't talk about the building next door. I can't talk about one of the other schools, but for this building, with these 500 kids and 100 plus staff members, the buck stops at my desk. I'm the one in charge. And it is an awesome, overwhelming to a degree feeling sometimes just to think about that. So I'm sure the same thing goes through from the standpoint of, on the other end, can I, I know what they're calling me to write this book.
Yes.
They out of all the people in the world, they call me. So I can totally relate to why that feeling would come up. But see, this is where the beauty of this is you didn't let that feeling stop you.
Yes, and that's the key, is that oftentimes we talk ourselves out of success.
Right.
And that's even for those who work hard to get there. And,
yes.
And then when it shows up, we sabotage ourselves and our own success. And we have to really get present to what's going on inside of us. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on inside of us. Think about all the experiences. Think about all the days that you've lived on this planet.
Right.
And all the things that you've seen, heard, and experienced, all the things that really have worked for you, but think about the things also that have worked against you and how it impacts your psyche.
Right.
And how some of those things are still lodged in your spirit if you haven't really worked through them and took that spear out, right?
Correct.
So those things really impact you even when successes come. I often tell people when I'm doing workshops, I can remember there were times where I would sit at the table and I was like right on the brink of signing a contract, right?
Right.
And I'd sit at the table and I'd worked hard and now they're like, yeah, and they're about to sign, and I'd say something stupid. Like, where did that come from? What did you just say? What? And then the person, they look up and they're like, well, maybe we ought to wait on that. And I'm thinking, what did I just do? So
I'm sitting there visualizing that, sitting at the conference table with the executives around there.
Yes, it's crazy the things we do. But it's really when we're driven by our pain when we don't do our work.
Right.
When we don't do our work. This is what we get. Foolishness, right?
That's right. That's my wife's favorite word, foolishness. That's right.
Is it really? Yeah. You know, I talk about internal conflict, and I said internal conflict shows up to awaken us and to move us out of a place of compliance. See, we're being compliant to the negativity. We're being compliant to our past. We're being compliant to those things that hinder us. So the internal conflict is constantly trying to awaken us and say, hey, look, you're in a place of compliance. It's almost like an abusive relationship.
Right.
Where you're in compliance with that person that's saying you're this or you're that. It's you, actually, the other person, the pain person, that's actually trying to keep you in compliance with your past.
Correct.
And you trying to move beyond it.
No, absolutely right. And again, everything that we've been talking about this morning, and for those of you, whenever we get down to the last portion of the interview, and I truly hope you've been with us since 6, but when we get down to the last portion of the interview, I turn the mic over to the guests and they have the opportunity to promote. But I'm going to jump the gun here in terms of if you go to S. Renee's website, it's www.srenee, just like it sounds, the letter SRENEE.com. You will see all the various media she's been on. I'm looking at NBC, CBS, ABC, Delaware Today, CNN, Fox. I'm looking at a partial client list. You'll see that on her webpage. And as she's saying, you do all of that and still every now and again, something that's going on the inside. Because one of her books, which one was your first book, by the way? Because I see there's more on the inside. That was the first one?
That is my baby.
Okay,
yes.
So there is more on the inside. And this is because see, sometimes it's real easy, Renee, and maybe it's not as easy as it may seem, but it's real easy to be smiling on the outside and hurting on the inside, or either looking secure on the outside and insecure on the inside. Or the flip side of it is there's more for you to pull out, because that's where there's more on the inside. That's what I mean, because I love a play on words. I'm a wordsmith. So I love phrases or titles that are, for the most part, a double entendre. They can go more than one way. So when I look at there is more on the inside, that means either something, is you feel it's depleted and you don't think there is any more, and you're telling them, yes, there is more on the inside.
Yes.
And the other piece of that would be, I'm not just what you see on the outside. There is more on the inside. So I love play on words, double meanings. And so that can be interpreted a few different ways, and both of them are helpful. And to help folks understand there's more to you than what people see. And also, if you feel that hope is gone or everything is gone or lost or depleted, there's still more to come. And that's kind of the way, that's at least 2 ways I took it.
Yes, you're exactly right. In fact, There Is More Inside was born during the time that I was fired from my job. My fiance walked out of my life. And in fact, I was being bullied on my job very specifically, and I write about that in There Is More Inside, and he walked out of my life. So I was fired from my job in December. Our relationship was over in April. And so within 4 months, and so the doctor said, hey, you're depressed, give me an antidepressant. I came home, kind of went through that phase where I couldn't get out of bed, or I'd look in the mirror and I wouldn't see myself anymore. I couldn't feel myself. I was wondering where I was. I didn't get up and really be able to recognize that the sun was shining through as I do. I mean, I'm an early riser. I'm a high energy. So I became the student of my own teaching. And so, I share with them, it was in that place where it seemed like, I was a director of public relations. I was in the president's cabinet. And literally someone said to me, they said, man, you're like Jesus, you walk on water. Well, it's almost because I was moving so fast.
Right.
Like, one of the things about my personality is I'm very results-oriented.
Right.
So a type A personality, really focused on results, and so I moved so quickly there. And that's what he was saying. But I will tell you, life can do a flip on you in a second.
Oh, yes, it can.
You get that, right?
I'm back in your amen corner again. Oh, yes, it can.
Right. So that's why it's good to stay humble and stay focused and know that you're just a vessel. You know, you're just a gateway somewhere, right? And to know where you're the gateway to for other people.
Right.
Because literally we all have our agenda, and people are asking themselves, can you help me reach mine?
Right.
So, so it was basically, that's where the book was born, but here it is for me, several things. One, for all the people who have been bullied on your jobs, I want you to know this. 11 years later, she sent me an email of apology.
Wow.
Stating that she always knew that I had the talent to be successful, et cetera, and that she was going through her own issues at the time.
Not surprised at all. I said I'm not surprised at that at all, in terms of, because a lot of time when people have issue with you, it's their issue, it's not yours. They're just taking it out on you.
Absolutely. But what I learned from that is something that I kept having to learn, is how to stand in your power. It wasn't about, remember, my three areas: likability, marketability, credibility. I can take anybody and literally help them package, position, promote, and pitch themselves into the marketplace. I just had a woman who hadn't had a promotion in 6 years, and in 3 months of our meeting, she got 2 job offers. So I can take anybody and really that's what I do, right?
Right.
So but that's what I could do with myself. But however, there were some challenges. There were some real challenges. It was also about, how do I stand in my power? How do I say no when I mean no? How do I say yes when I want to say yes? How do I say that doesn't feel good? How do I say, you know what, that's really not for me? Or how do I say, how do we work together?
Right.
How do we? So a lot of times, that quality is important, but you have to have the other things to go with it that allows you to also work synergistically with people, versus just trying to be popular, versus just trying to be liked. Know that you are more likable when you are standing in truth, because that's where the light is.
That's right. That's where that energy, like you were saying, your early morning high energy, I can feel that. That's why I'm glad you are, because this is an early morning show. Some people are like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm up this early. But it's an early morning show. I could see with you, it's not an issue. But that's where the energy, when you're walking in your power and working in your truth, you give off a whole different vibe, a whole different energy. And people pick up on it. That's why people pick up on high energy. People also pick up on low energy. They pick up on positivity. They pick up on negativity. And when you're working with kids, I tell people all the time, I could tell you now, if nothing else, I don't care what circumstance the child comes from. If children know nothing else, they know sincerity. They pick up on a sincere vibe right off. I mean, when a child really knows you care about them, even if you're showing them tough love, they'll take it, versus somebody that they think is just being mean for the sake of being mean. Well, the same thing kind of holds true, like you were just talking about, when you're walking in your power, walking in your truth, or the truth, whichever way you want to look at it. People pick up on that. That's why people are drawn to one and not drawn to the other. And so I could not agree with you more. And again, going back to the transparency, we were talking about the whole issue of, like religion or spirituality or God or what have you. A lot of times, a lot of people get turned away from religion or from church or from God or whatever, is because those who are in the church, the Christians or whatever their faith may be, make it look like they're so perfect. So for somebody that's coming in off the street, or somebody that may be trying to find their way, they'll look at that person that quote unquote has always been perfect and say, well, I can never be that. So no need to bother. But see, that's the same thing what you're doing here with the work that you're doing. And by your being transparent, going back to that again, it is helping people understand, yes, you can be this, because it has been my experience in the areas of self-esteem. I always find this very interesting paradox. Some of the finest people I've ever seen have revealed they had self-esteem issues. And when I say fine, I'm talking about attractive and good looking, so forth and so on. Someone that you would not right off the bat think would have a reason to have a self-esteem issue. It's like, why would she or he have a self-esteem issue looking like that? But in many instances, I would say 9 times out of 10, I've seen, like, I've told this story on the air before. I remember being at my daughter's high school at the time when she was in high school. And there was this very, very attractive Hispanic young lady, and she was singing in the choir, and she had just done a solo and everything. Everybody clapped and everything. And everybody was happy and proud and everything. So the principal gets up there and she says, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I'm going to share something with you all. And she doesn't mind if I share it. But and I forget the little girl's name. She said, but whatever her name was, she said, you would not believe this beautiful young lady had self-esteem issues. And everybody in the audience is sitting there like, you've got to be kidding. This kid was drop dead gorgeous. Like, why would she have self-esteem issues? But again, going back to, it's more on the inside. There's more than what you're seeing on the outside. There's more to this. So even though I may be looking good, there's still some things going on. Going back to that point you were making about sitting in the meeting and say something stupid, something come up out of nowhere. There's a whole lot to this self-esteem thing that people really need, because I'm working with kids and having 4 daughters and working with girls, and I'm a firm believer that most of the issues and things that we get ourselves into is somewhere related to self-esteem. And if you can get the self-esteem thing under control, you can kind of make it.
Absolutely. And to your point, I think at the core of your point is self-esteem has nothing to do with looks.
Correct.
Nothing.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of people make that mistake.
Yep. Well, because she's pretty or he's good looking and they have high self-esteem. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what's going on inside of you.
Yes.
And what's going on inside of you is based on how you've been treated and how you process those experiences.
Yes.
So it's not just how you've been treated, but how you process those experiences.
That's it. Listening audience, I hope you took a lot away from this conversation. But if you don't take anything away from that, besides the fact that I need you to go out there and purchase one or more of S. Renee's books, because they'll be worth the read. I already know which one or two that because when we get to that in a couple of minutes is how are they available or how folks can get them. But the branding one, no doubt, no question. The bridge to your brand is not that I don't have a brand, but you always want to do what you want to do better. The self-esteem for dummies, I want to have that in my library at the school for whenever I'm talking and meeting with the kids. I may wind up getting all 4. You never know, because I like to support the authors who come on the show. But certainly there's a couple of them. And matter of fact, the prayer, heal your heart. And see, you know what? I can see already I'm going to wind up getting all 4. But in any event, I do encourage a listening audience to do the same, because back to the growth thing. This is how you grow. Now, see, I'm like a self-development junkie. I was going to say guru, but it's more on the junkie side. I'm addicted to that. I always have been the same way, kind of like you at 12 and 13, because I'm always looking, even as good as I think I am, I honestly think I can be even better. And even when I get to that point of what better is, I want to be even better than that. So I'm constantly looking to get better at whatever it is that I'm doing. And self-development has always been one of those areas. So I encourage you to do the same. But as she just said, the things that we think are connected to self-esteem is not. It's not about the six-pack abs, the drop-dead gorgeous face, the hair, or the behind, or the this, that, and the other. It's not. It's not that, because like I just told you, my experience has been some of the best-looking people in the world had some of the lowest self-esteem. So,
absolutely.
With that said, we have come down. Like this is going. We can go on till the 9 o'clock hour till it ends. So I'm off the air, but because this is kind of like my topic. This is my speak. It really is, because I'm always a big proponent of people being the best they can be. And then when you were asking me when we were off the air in terms of me working with the kids, that's kind of what drives me. I tell kids all the time, look, if it could happen for me, it can happen for you. But going back to what you said about you got to put the work in, though. It's not going to be magic. It's not, nobody's waving a magic wand over you and you're going to be rich and you're going to be, no. You got to put in the work. And so I'm always interested in, because no one is, there's always been people there for me in terms of helping pave the way. God has put people there to pave the way for me. So I always feel like God put me there to pave the way for somebody else as well. And so in terms of being better, or whatever we do, that's what I'm always looking for. So what you do is so important. And as an African-American woman and one who has been, again, looking at you, I look at your website and I'll do one of those. I couldn't believe that she would fall into depression or a fiance would leave or be bullied. You wouldn't look at that by going to your webpage. I'm looking at you in the white dress here, the purple lettering and so on. I saw the video with you in Canfield and so on. So one would not believe just on surface. But again, once you start sharing your story, that's where the hope comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? What we don't believe is the image of what we see. But the truth is, if we would really sit for a minute, and I know you're going to get this, Mark, is that every person has this journey of having great moments and then have moments of challenge and then great moments. And, so every person's from the Oprah Winfrey's of the life to the Marks of the world to whoever, And so even I know that even your journey wasn't a straight path to being a principal of a school, the school that you used to attend.
Right. That's right.
How awesome is that, to be able to go back and be a great contributor to the community in which you were raised, and to be able to bring all of your skills, knowledge, and abilities, gifts, and talents to children who are going to be the presidents, the CEOs, the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers of the world. What a gift that you bring to the world and to the U.S. and to the world, to be able to shape the minds of people and to shape the minds and the behaviors of the people that shape the minds and the lives of these young people. So, but I know that probably it hasn't been easy getting there, and probably sometimes it's not easy sustaining yourself there.
No, it's not. I laugh because the kids come in. I didn't want to come to school today. I said, I got a secret for you. There are days the principal don't want to come to school. I said, but we got to come. That's a part of life. You got to do things you don't want to do sometimes. That's a discipline you have to learn. I said, so, I didn't want to get out of bed this morning to come to school either, but
absolutely.
But it's true.
You did.
It really is. And when I was first getting the master's for ed leadership to be a principal, I told my dean, I said, you know what? I really love the classroom. I don't think I want to go into administration. I want to stay in the class. And then he said something that totally flipped my script. And it was kind of along the lines of what you just said about impacting the people who impact the minds. He says, well, think of it this way. In the classroom, you get to impact maybe 15 to 30 people at a time, max, each year. But as a principal, you get to impact the entire building. And Renee, from the point he said that, my whole mindset changed. Back to that mindset thing again. My whole mindset changed once he said that. And there are times when I'm walking around checking bulletin boards or checking on classes that commentary will come back to mind. Like, wow, we get a chance to impact a building. And so it is true. And again, what you're doing is critical because you're hitting the various avenues. You have the coaching piece, you have the motivational speaking piece, you have the author piece, and the subject matter of self-esteem is so take it from one who sees it. Please.
Yeah, Mark, can I share just this one piece?
Please. Like I said, I have till 9 o'clock.
Okay. I just want to share this one piece with you because the principal or the person that was talking to you provided a shift for you. But I think there's even something bigger than that. So he was talking about you get to impact the building. And certainly I know he's saying the people in the building. But I think it's even bigger than that because the people in the building, those little children go home to their parents. Right. And they say and they do things that their parents are probably wowed by. And it creates a shift even in their homes. Or they say something to someone at their church. Or they say something to another kid, right, on the playground. Or, you know, they say, or they'll grow up and do something. So ultimately, yeah, you have the opportunity to shape the lives of the people in the building, but those people will leave that building every day, and they're going to go and they're going to touch the lives of someone else at their church or in their home or wherever. And whatever it is that you put in them, it's going beyond. It's in that building, but so far beyond. And you can't even imagine the number of people that spirit, that energy, that knowledge, those talents, skills, and abilities, that intellectual property that you are pouring into your faculty, your staff, and to your young people, how many people they're going to touch. So ultimately, literally, I would assure you that you are touching millions by touching 500.
And you know what, just sitting here listening to you, because like I said, as we've been talking, just certain things pop into the mind. And I always say, like, the schools have the opportunity to impact the community. But then when you start looking at the exponential value, like you just did, like one kid now impacts somebody else, it goes beyond even the community. And you're right. You're absolutely right. That's one of the things that always attracted me to teaching to begin with. I took a detour from it in my first career prior to that, you know, based on a conversation with my father. And then ultimately, going back to what you were saying, we were put here on this planet for a purpose. And eventually you get back to that purpose whether you want to or not. Whether you want to or not, that journey leads you back to what you were originally put here to do, regardless of what detours you take. And you're absolutely right in terms of changing a community. And that's one of the goals as well. Because like I said, the school where I am is in the least economic part of the city. It's in one of the worst wards in the city of Patterson. And so I'm always grateful and thankful whenever we can see changes occurring because of some of the things that we're doing in the school. And a lot of it is mindset. It really is mindset. It's helping those kids, like I said, I was telling you about exposure, helping those kids understand that it's bigger than this, it's more than this. Like, just like you said, there's more inside of you. There's more to the world than this. And that's kind of like our message. And it is gratifying and satisfying. And it's challenging, but it's a work that we have to do. That's why I say all the work is connected. It really is. What you do, what I do, what the ministers and the residents and the pastors and other professions do, it's all connected. We're all here for a reason. Have you ever, for me, every now and again, as I'm driving in, I will just really observe all the different jobs going on, from the garbage man or the garbage collector to the crossing guard to the tow truck driver to the whoever. And I'll just sit there and marvel at, wow, all these different jobs, and they all connect. Because if anyone not do their job, you'd feel it.
Absolutely.
I always tell people, do you ever notice that the sanitation workers never strike in the winter? They always strike in the summer. And that's by design. That's by design. They know that if they strike in the summer, that garbage is going to start smelling, and folks are going to miss their presence immensely. Versus in the winter, it might be bad, but you won't smell nothing. It'll look bad. I mean, but you won't smell anything because of the temperature. But in the summertime, you got the look and the smell. Folks going to start crying out, we need our sanitation men. So that's, if any any one piece of the puzzle doesn't work or do their part, that's why there's no such thing as there's no such thing as just a garbage man, no such thing as just a crossing guard. Everything connects. That's why, back to what you were saying, there really is no big I's and little U's. Everybody plays a role, and there's no room for anybody being arrogant. And so, because life does have that way of pulling us back. It does.
There you go. Absolutely. Yes.
So, all right, I tell you what, let the listening audience know how they can get in touch with you in terms of your services, in terms of your books, websites. Are the book available like in Barnes & Noble or Amazon, or are they downloadable, Kindle friendly, or what have you? Anything you need to let folks know as to how to get S. Renee Smith, the services or your books. You can say anything with the exception of $1 amount, but anything short of that, the mic is yours to promote. Talk about branding and promoting. The mic is yours.
Okay. First of all, Mark, I want to thank you for an incredibly dynamic conversation and an opportunity to really share with people that there is more inside, and that it's directly linked to the mindset, and that success really, the haves and the have-nots, in terms of people really, not literally, I'm not talking economics have and have-nots, but we ourselves, we have not because we really don't want, or we choose to not put the work in. So thank you for the opportunity to have a platform to share that message, and that ultimately, no matter what you go through, there's always more within you. So starting with my first book, There Is More Inside. It's really a book about courage, confidence, and personal accountability. I don't know about you, but for me, people would tell me as a young girl growing up, you have it, you have something, you have that thing. You're going to eventually be successful, but I couldn't own it myself. And I think I'm probably still trying to own it, right? But but I'm getting to the point where I am learning how to own it. But There Is More Inside is really teaching people how to understand, why am I here? What am I here to do? What do I value? What's important to me? And really begin the foundational pieces needed to walk in your power. My second book, and that book is available on Kindle. It's available also, on Amazon. You can ask for it by name in any bookstore across the country. So my second book, The Bridge to Your Brand, Likability, Marketability, and Credibility, is really somewhat of a business book, and it's really understanding that understanding who you are, the value that you bring, and understanding that organizations are looking for three things. They're looking for your innovative ideas, they're looking for your intellectual property, and they're looking for you to understand your value proposition. So you have to know what you have, but other people have to know what you have and how it's of value to them. And so that's what that book is about. And both of those books guide you. They have questions at the end of each chapter that will guide you through really developing a brand. And then Our Heart's Wonder, which is my third book, Prayers to Heal Your Heart and Calm Your Soul, is a direct result of my sister having an aneurysm rupture in her brain in 2013. And I would write prayers every day, and I would text them out to our family, and I would ask them to say that prayer at a certain time of the day. 21 days later, my sister walked out of the hospital by God's grace. And so even though in the midst when it first happened, I almost lost my faith footing.
Wow.
I literally became a believer in miracles because the doctor said she had a 1 in 3 chance of living, and at one point he basically said she probably wouldn't live.
Absolutely.
And to have her walk out and be able to walk and talk and now is driving is a divine blessing.
Praise God. Praise God for sure. I mean, and I tell you, we can be here till 9 o'clock easy. Just that alone, just that conversation alone, we could be here easy till 9.
Yeah. So that's what the third book is about. And the fourth book, Self-Esteem for Dummies, as we talked about earlier, of course, is a part of the world's best-selling reference brand book series for dummies. And I write about self-esteem for dummies. It is the co-write. I am the lead on that particular book. But here's what, oftentimes people laugh at the title, but I want you to get this. This book is probably some of or part of my best work. Here's why. It's a culmination of a lot of what I learned over the years, and I share a lot of great stories in this book. Improving your personal relationships, how to stop falling in love with being in love, how to build a loving relationship, how to have self-esteem when you stand in front of an audience. So I give some of the secrets to how to actually stand in front of an audience in your personal power. I talk about our internal barriers that we deal with that really stop us from moving our lives forward. I really talk about faith and self-esteem for dummies because faith is directly linked to how we feel about ourselves and how we see the world around us. I talk about, writing goals, but then I also confess that I wasn't really the person. Literally, the last part is called Confession of a Coach. The fact that for a long time growing up, I would set all these goals. I would set goals, and I would never reach them. And I was disappointed because I didn't reach the goal. So as a result, I stopped writing goals. And I would just write down little things that I wanted to achieve, and I'd stick them in a journal. And somehow I looked back over my life, and I realized that those things had come to pass.
They came to pass. Yes, I've had that experience. This radio show is one of those things that came to pass.
So you get it.
Yes.
You get it. So it came to pass anyway. So sometimes setting goals may not be your thing. But I offer you a lifeline, which is simply to write down something. Put it somewhere away. Tuck it away. Put it anywhere. And know that you're totally supported and that you're going to get there if you're willing to stay with it and get in alignment with all that is and all that ever will be. I talk about the barriers of work. I shared earlier how I was fired from a job. So what are those barriers? How do you maintain your self-confidence when you go into the workplace every day and somehow it seems like it's stripping you of that confidence? How do you rewrite your love story? We all have been in situations where love has seemed to fail us, but we know that love never fails. So how does it fail us? I believe that we fail ourselves because we make decisions knowing that it's not the place for us to be. So how do we admit that and then get beyond it? And then, improving your personal relationships. I write about, building self-esteem in children. I write about leadership. So it's so many great stories in that book, and I'm not saying one book is better than the other. It just depends on where you are. If you're looking for basic pillars for building your self-esteem, there's more inside. And if you're looking for a book that really kind of, I tell people, There's More Inside is a book that any page you open, you're going to be able to see yourself in it. I don't know why that book is the way it is, but it wasn't intentionally written that way. But it's just written in such a way that people can open any page and they'll be able to relate. So those are the 4 books. They're available on Amazon. They're available on Kindle. Our Heart's Wonder isn't available on Kindle, but you can ask for them by name in any bookstore. Self-Esteem for Dummies is typically, it was released nationally. So there you have it. That's pretty much my spiel on the book, and I just want to encourage you too that I have an online program. I encourage you to do this. Go to srenee.com,
Exactly.
SRENEE.com, and I have something called Tips and Tools for Life with S. Renee, and I send out emails. I have over 145 videos on YouTube. And I will tell you, I don't think that there's a video that you can't click on that you won't get information, tips, and tools. Well, a lot of those, a lot of that can be delivered directly to your email. So I encourage you to sign up there. And also, I will not mention pricing, but I have books as well, where I do a lot of promotion. So if you sign up there, you'll get an email that talks a little bit about that.
Yeah, you went exactly where I was going to go, and I'm going to reiterate it for you in the listening audience. Get your pen and paper ready, or you should have one near you if you don't. But again, it's relatively easy to remember. You know how to spell Renee. It's Renee. If you just put the S in front of it, it's www.srenee.com. No spaces. www.srenee.com. It is the hub. You can find everything that she's been talking about there under various tabs. If you go there, there's a home tab about S. Renee, author, coaching, motivational speaker, workshop presenter, media expert, events, and how you can contact Renee. Also, how you can connect with her on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. Well, it has been a fantastic conversation. I share with folks because on Saturday mornings is the earliest I get up out of all the week. The rest of the week I get up around maybe 6 or so. But on Saturdays I get up at 4:30 so I can be to the studio and up and prepared to be on the air by 6. So I drag in here, and then by the time I finish speaking with whoever the guest is, I'm on cloud 9, and then I put on the gospel music for between now and 9 o'clock. I'll put on the good news and songs. So when I leave here, I am totally different from the way I walked in here.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So if you think I had high energy whenever we were talking, you wait when I'm leaving here, the energy level is even higher. So my Saturdays are usually very good because of the experiences that I have in the morning. And this one definitely ranks right up there in terms of, because you can feel the energy, even though we can't see each other face to face, you can feel the energy over the telephone line or over the microphone, if you will. And it's there, it's definitely there. If you're ever in the New York, northern New Jersey area, please let me know. If you're here during the day or during a weekday, feel free. You can visit my school. And if I'm down in that Delaware area, because like I said, I was down there quite frequently over the last few years, having 2 kids down there at Del State. But if I'm down in the Delaware area again, I'll shoot you an email, let you know I'm heading that way. But I know Del State well.
That would be awesome.
But yeah, again, in the New York area, I do, whenever I get the opportunity, because most of my guests I don't get to meet face to face. It's kind of like the telephone email thing. But every now and again they come into the area, we connect. I had an author a couple of weeks ago. She was doing a book signing in Freehold. And I shot down there real quick and met up with her. And then I've had authors that come to New York. I'll catch them over in New York, whatever. So if you come in the area, do let me know, and I will try to clear the calendar so that we can meet face to face. The books are There Is More Inside, The Bridge to Your Brand, Our Heart's Wonder, Prayers to Heal Your Heart and Calm Your Soul. I like that idea of sending out a prayer on text and then say at this time. I like that idea. That's a great idea. Self-esteem for Dummies. All right, and this is recorded, so I always put the disclaimer on, and the listening audience, they know, regular listeners, because every now and again the technology goes awry. But as long as everything is working correctly, I'll send you an MP3 link as well as a YouTube link where I archive the shows. They're on my YouTube channel. So everything that we said this morning will be you won't be able to see anything other than some pictures coming across, but you can hear the interview on YouTube. And then the MP3 link, and you're free to do whatever you want with them once I send them to you.
Sounds great. Well, I will definitely be sending it out to my list.
All right. Well, I tell you what, you have a wonderfully blessed rest of your Saturday and week and holiday season, Thanksgiving and all that good stuff. And we will be in touch. Listening audience, one more time, 4 books. There Is More Inside, The Bridge to Your Brand, Our Heart's Wonder, Prayers to Heal Your Heart and Calm Your Soul, and Self-Esteem for Dummies. The author is S. Renee. That's what's on title. That's what's on the book covers, S. Renee. All right, S. Renee. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Okay, you too. You too, Mark. God bless.
Same to you. Take care now. All right. The end of another reading circle. Let me see, we had a guest a couple weeks ago. And then last week we did the whole 3 hours of the gospel music, and This week, 2 of the hours with the interview, and we're ready to put on the good news and song in a minute as soon as I do the top of the hour stuff. But boy, it was good talking to Esther in there. I love talking to somebody with high energy. I love talking to somebody with a positive spirit, someone who, regardless of how many times they get knocked down, they get back up again, because that's what life is all about. Life is not always up. A lot of times we are knocked down and then we have to get back up again. And so for some people, they get stuck. They get knocked down and they stay down. That's where the issue arises, is when you get knocked down and you stay down. The issue is not in getting knocked down. There's a difference between getting knocked down and continuing to move forward and getting knocked down and staying down. The staying down is where the issue is. So with everything, you got to get back up. The last week, whenever I shared with you, I said by this week, by the time we came together again, God willing, we would have a new president. And a new president we do have. I will tell you that. Folks are running around talking about they're scared and this and that. I am not afraid. I can tell you that straight up. I am not afraid. There's only so much any president can do. I don't care who it is. So whether it's Hillary, whether it's Donald, there are checks and balances in place, even though it may appear that they're all out for evil. Do remember it did say in the Bible, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. So you got the legislative, you got the executive, and you got the judicial. You got the three checks there. So even as much, which Donald is not going to do the stuff that he's first off, even if he wanted to, he couldn't. That's the first thing. Secondly, the checks and balances are not going to allow him to do those things. And lastly, even if the checks and balances thought they could do it, eventually the country would rise up and say, no, not having it. It's not going to work. Enough people would be together that it just wouldn't work. So I am not afraid. I really am not. I mean, people are talking about I'm scared and all this kind of stuff. No. I mean, if you look at Donald, he really looks like he can't believe he won himself. It's kind of looking like, wow, what do I do now? He got that what do I do now look on, like I won. What do I do now? But we'll be fine. That's my point. We'll be fine. So folks need to take it down, calm down. Regardless of who is president, we still know who is king. So I just can't not get worked up over Donald Trump being president. I mean, like I said, for me, he just has that kind of okay, I got the title, what do I do next look. But again, we will be fine. We do have a 45th president of the United States of America. Even if, let's say, for example, depending on your point of view, let's say, for example, you feel that his election is America being knocked down, if that's the way you view it. Still, America will get back up again. I mean, let me tell you how I know Donald is not going to be able to do everything he wanted to do, because Obama wasn't able to do everything he wanted to do. It's the same deal. Just like Obama had a whole bunch of ideas and things, he didn't get across half of the things that he wanted to do because they kept getting blocked. Donald is not going to get across anything near all of that stuff he claimed during that campaign. It's going to be blocked. Not to mention, he shifts his position so much, it doesn't matter anyway. I mean, he talked to Obama the other day. Now Obama's a good man. That's the way he is. I mean, it's like whenever he was on the campaign trail, he called Obama everything but a child of God. And now that they've met and he's won it, now Obama's a good man. If you notice, that's his pattern. So no, I am not afraid. I can unequivocally say that here on the air publicly. I am not afraid. I'll put it on all my social media sites. I am not afraid. All right, we are at the 8 o'clock hour. I'm kind of like